There are a lot of different ways to play World of Warcraft. There's the main game Retail WoW, then there's WoW Classic and Classic Cataclysm, and of course WoW Classic Hardcore. Now I've always liked the idea of Hardcore WoW, however Hardcore only really comes on WoW Classic, and for me personally, I'm not a massive fan of Classic WoW. It's just a bit slow for me. So recently, I made a video about a hardcore challenge that I came up with in Retail WoW, and a lot of people seemed to enjoy it, and a lot of those people suggested that I give the Iron Man challenge a try. So last week, that's what I did, and I got all the way up to level 30, and towards the end of recording that video, everything started to get harder and harder. So today, we make the push to get further and further to the end goal of level 80. If you have watched my original video, then you will be familiar with my character Sniff, a brave troll warrior who attempted to take on Ragefire Chasm solo. RIP Sniff. Well, I would like to introduce you to Sniff's autistic cousin, Sniff. Last time, we finished off by completing a few quests in the Wetlands, but I wanted to continue exploring the Eastern Kingdom. So, I opened my map to find a zone that I hadn't really been in before, and decided to go with the Hinterlands, because I recognized the name but can't really recall what the location looks like, and luckily it was covered in nice big trees with some patches of water, and of course, it was rampant with cannibalistic trolls, which is lovely. Now that we are here and beginning our quests in the Hinterlands, it's probably best that we go over the rules of the Iron Man challenge, yeah? Rule number 1. Do not die. It's a pretty self-explanatory rule. This is meant to be a challenge, and if I was allowed to die, then there would be no risk. Rule number 2. Only white gear. The entire point of the Iron Man challenge is that you are not allowed to equip any gear above the white rarity, which means everything only gets harder and harder because white gear does disappear from the loot pools pretty quickly into the game. Rule number 3. No groups. Obviously, this is because being in a group would mean that everything would become immensely easier, and this is counting dungeons and raids. Although on the website it does say that you are allowed to run dungeons if you have an entire group of people only on the Iron Man challenge, but I highly doubt that we will be able to find enough people for that. Rule number 4. No auction house. This is because white gear is pretty scarce, and if I was allowed to just buy all the best gear off of the auction house for pennies, then it would just be a bit too easy. Rule number 5. No professions. This is counting everything from blacksmithing all the way to herbalism. Obviously, because it would be too easy to just craft any gear upgrades through professions like blacksmithing, and professions like herbalism and mining would provide a significant chunk of experience points, which we don't want. We want to get all of our XP from combat and combat-based quests. Rule number 6. No consumables. I actually didn't mention this on the other video, but I thought it would be worth mentioning anyway. But on the website, it does say no potions or elixirs or anything similar. And lastly, I would like to point out that on the website, it does say that all mounts are allowed, including the heirloom mount and dragon riding. So who am I to argue? I would also like to quickly mention what my goals here are. Obviously, I want to try and get max level eventually, but that will take a little while. So, for today at least, I would really like to go from level 30 to level 50. After completing the first chunk of quests in the Hinterlands, we now needed to tackle the hardest part of this zone, where we had to go to this area that was swarmed with trolls and kill loads of different kinds of trolls and collect certain items, etc. When I first saw this area, I kind of thought this would cause some problems just because of how many mobs were running around here, but actually it wasn't too bad. I could fly on top of the tall walls and then drop on top of whatever I needed to kill. And whilst I was here, we did manage to pick up this quest item from one of the trolls, which is nice since it's pretty much free XP. We then needed to venture into a cave which was full of spiders, creepy, and then decided to turn in the free quest that I had picked up, which took us on another quest where we had to escort a robot chicken, which I suppose is perfectly normal for World of Warcraft standards. And it was all going fine. It was just a few trolls that would pop up every now and then, but then I got jumped by 3 owl dudes. I honestly panicked slightly, because right now, I was comfortably able to take on 2 mobs, but 3 at a time was getting a little harsh. But luckily, the robot chicken took aggro off one of the owls, and we got out of it unscathed. We only had a couple more quests to complete inside of the Hinterlands, like killing a load of undead invaders, killing a load of spider worshipping trolls, and then killing said spider itself. Lastly, for our adventure in the Hinterlands was a couple of casual quests of killing wolves and feeding the birds. Then the game would push me out of the Hinterlands as we had completed pretty much everything here. The game took us to an unfamiliar place called the Eastern Plaguelands. The name once again sounded familiar, but I couldn't quite place what it looked like. It was a harsh looking place, very dark and lots of dead plants and stuff. Upon arriving, I could already tell that this place was going to be rough, as there was an undead scourge everywhere, and to be honest, I wasn't about to mess with this many mobs. I did complete a couple of quests just to get an idea for what the zone would be like, but no, this place just had way too many mobs for my liking. So I took a step back for a second and took a trip to the one place that I hated most, Stormwind, the capital city of the Alliance. Everything you could possibly need is right here. Auction house, banks, a portal room, it's all here. But what we were interested in is an NPC called Chromie. This annoying gnome would allow us to travel to any timeline and quest in any expansion that we wanted, and I wanted to quest in a place that is aesthetically pleasing. So I decided to go with Mists of Pandaria, because in all honesty, it's one of my favourite places to quest whilst leveling, and I've never done it from the Alliance side because I've only ever played Horde. So I hopped on a ship and headed for Pandaria. Once we arrived, we first had to take on the introduction scenario, where we begin to gun down the Horde. Nothing quite like taking a war to a land full of peace. Seeing this from the Alliance side was pretty weird, because it is essentially the same thing, just in another location. Once we are deployed to the ground, we once again slaughter as many orcs as my tiny gnome arms will let me, but after the first few initial quests, we get to take on this like 4-quest Horde invasion thing, where we get to destroy ammunition stockpiles, kill a few mini-boss NPCs, and then free captive Pandaran cubs, which is kinda messed up, man. And everything was going just fine, until I had to take on a guy called Gatrul. And honestly, I thought this was where it was going to end. He was constantly casting, he was stunning me, he was constantly teleporting around the room, and there was quite a few times that I got put into the red zone. But with the help of impending victory and the ability to interrupt him 3 times, we did emerge victorious. Now that the introduction quests were completed, we could finally start to quest in the thick jungles of Pandaria. And what better way to start than by murdering a load of monkeys? We were then sent off deeper into Pandaria to a camp that was absolutely swarmed with even more monkeys. We had to rescue some allies here, and while being as careful as possible as to not accidentally pull too many mobs. But luckily it went pretty smooth, and we freed our allies and headed even deeper, where we befriended a load of fish people. And whilst here, we got to go through a couple of really cool quests where the characters are telling a story, but like we're playing as if we were the characters in that story. I mean, why don't we get cool things like this anymore? Basically, this entire quest line was that we are gearing and training a load of fish people to go to war with the monkeys. I have absolutely no idea what this contributes to the story of World of Warcraft, but you know what? It was fun, and I was really starting to like questing here. But like all good things, that quest line ended, and we were sent off to help a random Pandaran do his gardening. I think it's funny how World of Warcraft goes from a war between fish people and sentient monkeys to gardening with an anthropomorphic panda, although it was a nice couple of quests just to relax by painting Anduin, trimming a tree and meditating. But like all other NPCs in this game, this Pandaran wanted us to go out and murder a load of crocodiles and such. Once we had finished the crocodile killing, we had made it to level 49, which means we only had one more level to go before we had reached our goal. But before that, we had to meditate, of course, because that is what 95% of Mist of Pandaria is. Then it was up some hill where we would complete our last few quests before we would hit level 50. Luckily though, it was 3 very simple quests where we had to enter into a cave, kill 6 spirits, collect 4 water, and kill 2 mini-boss NPCs. And to be fair, these things did put up a pretty decent fight, which I think is a great way to end the day.
Greetings.
Hello.
I hope you enjoyed this video because I enjoyed making it. If you guys are looking for a way to have a bit of fun in WoW that isn't Mythic Plus or some other endgame content, then I would highly suggest that you guys give the Iron Man challenge a go, because honestly, it's some of the most fun I've had in WoW in a while. Not that I'm not having fun with the War Within, but it's just a nice change to have sometimes. Also, if I could ask you guys for a quick favor, that would be awesome. If you could please leave any advice that you have in the comments. What would you change about my videos? What would you add? Please, be as harsh as you possibly can. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all later.